Legend Total War here, and today we're going to be diving into the Nurgle faction for Total War Warhammer 3 and explaining how they function on the campaign map, how they function on the battlefield, and their strengths and weaknesses, and Kugath Plaguefather, the legendary lord for this faction. So, let's firstly talk about Kugath Plaguefather, because he has possibly got the meatiest skill line out of any legendary lord I've ever seen in this game. He has so many skills, and most of them are really good. So he's got his unique line up here, most of them being really good. Being able to recruit Plague Ridden, the hero, in any region is very useful, especially if you need to be closing Chaos Portals. He's got reduced upkeep cost over here for Great Unclean Ones faction-wide, so just loads and loads of bonuses. I don't want to go through everything, it'll just be the entire video. But he's got his unique skill line, he's got a melee line, which at the end of it gives him Pestilent Decay, which turns him into a Mortis Engine. All Exalted Great Unclean Ones can get that as well. And he's got 2 health upgrades in here, right, giving him, 19,292 health, which is incredibly tanky. That's on ultra unit scale, by the way. That's the most hit points I've ever seen on a legendary lord by a pretty significant margin. He's an artillery unit, a spellcaster. He's decent in melee, but what his major weakness is that he's really slow and he's really big. So missile units, even though he's got a lot of hit points, can kill him pretty quickly. But because healing in this game is now percentage based, healing him is quite viable because you just get so much health back per Winds of Magic, essentially. So yeah, he's also got his Winds of Magic line, and then the generic red line and blue line, which is the same with all Nurgle factions, and everyone's got their red and blue line there. Okay, now talking about how their playstyle works. So where Khorne was an extremely aggressive faction, right, where they're incentivized to not worry about administrating their settlements, just go out and destroy shit, build lots of armies with the blood host, and just be as aggressive as possible. Nurgle is incentivized to build up slowly. They get a lot of growth, but you don't want to be capturing lots of territory too quickly, because it's kind of difficult for Nurgle factions to capture settlements because their armies are not really designed well for doing that. You're going to take tons of casualties, and if you go up against even evenly matched forces with a decent amount of ranged units, they will just wear you out because your forces just can't capture the capture points very quickly. All of your units are extremely slow, whereas with Khorne stuff, with the Bloodletters and things like that, you can outmaneuver most enemies quite quickly. So where Nurgle is very slow to expand their territory, they are also very good at defending their regions. So the garrisons that you get are pretty good compared to other factions, fairly sizable. Okay, that's only a tier 2 settlement there, right? The infrastructure buildings, they give you extra garrison, and they don't have like a wall settlement in their minor settlements, so you can't build walls in minor cities. Now that's actually a good thing, because you want the garrison without the walls, because walls are kind of a detriment, because the way that walls work, when you've built a wall, when enemies besiege it, they tend to lay siege for a while before attacking. Now that means that they cause attrition for a long time, and by the time they launch the attack, they usually have basically a 100% chance of winning against your forces, because you get a bit of an auto-resolve buff when you've got a wall. Now, if you don't have a wall, the AI will often overestimate their ability, attack early before they've dished out any attrition, and the thing is as well is that walled settlements are kind of more difficult to defend than minor cities, because in walled cities you have to hold 2 specific capture points. If you lose either one of them, the game will start ticking down towards your defeat, whereas in minor cities you have to hold just 1 capture point of any type. Okay, as long as you are holding 1 capture point, you haven't got the army losses, you're fine in terms of that. Now, the way that Nurgle defends, and why he's so good at defending, is because Nurgle's towers are extremely powerful against single entities and infantry, and because their troops in the garrison are so tanky, they take a long time to kill, giving the towers enough time to destroy the enemy army. So you let the towers do all the work, and the Nurgle forces just hold the line. They're very good at it. So you could very easily defeat an army 2 or 3 times as large as yours, as long as it doesn't have the Nurgle severe weakness, which is missile units, fast missile units. So in terms of, I'm noticing that there is a bit of like a hard counter system between the 4 Chaos Gods, in that it seems to work this way. Cinch hard counters Nurgle, because Nurgle just can't catch Cinch, and Cinch just defeats him by range. So completely hard countered by Sinch. Nurgle seems to hard counter Khorne, because Khorne just can't kill Nurgle units fast enough. So Nurgle seems to be very good against Khorne. Khorne seems to be very good against Slaanesh. And Slaanesh seems to be very good against Sinch, because Slaanesh is super fast, goes in, dishes out high damage to units that have very low amounts of barrier. And that's another thing with Nurgle versus Nurgle versus Sinch, is that because of the barrier, it's very difficult for Nurgle units to actually break through them, because they just don't dish out damage fast enough. So even when you're in melee, a lot of the time you'll find that the Forsaken, or whatever you're fighting, will just be regenerating their barrier, and it can be very frustrating as Nurgle to deal with Sinch. So what I've done in this situation here, I actually waited for Kairos Fateweaver to go into the Chaos Realm, and then I attacked, and I left an army out here. They teleported over here, and now I've got an opportunity to basically finish off Kairos Fateweaver while he's busy doing the campaign mechanics. So let's go and do that, and then after the battle I'll explain how plagues work. So yeah, not favorable for him at all, because he was sitting in the Volary, and I didn't want to assault that, because, yeah, our armies are not great at assaulting settlements. But you'll see here, into this battle, this is on Legendary difficulty, so, you know, huge auto-resolve Malice, okay? Basically, you can just never auto-resolve. You know, our army should be able to handle this quite easily, but because we're so slow, these guys here are going to do a ton of damage to us. Like, let's jump in here and see how we go. Whereas if it was the other way around, if I was in command of this army here, going up against the AI Kugath Plaguefather, I reckon there's actually a decent chance I could defeat it. Because all you have to do is avoid getting into melee with him. I just don't have any missile units, and the Nurgle magic is nowhere near as powerful as Sinch magic. It's very expensive, even the low tier stuff, and like the Sinch barriers just kind of block it. So what we're going to do here is just try to rush at them as quickly as possible, so that we try to stop their... Actually, you know what I'll do? I'll go around their back. We'll try to surround them so they don't skirmish. Means they're not going to need a control group. But yeah, at speed 23, that's possibly one of the slowest units in the game. Like, they're really good in melee, but the thing is, because they've got physical resistance, and the Blue Horrors of Sinch are way faster than them, have magic missiles, they and these guys here have next to no armor, whereas the Horrors, they don't have much armor piercing. We're just hard countered by Sinch in the early game. Absolutely hard countered by them. Now, pretty sure we can still win, but Nurgle just has a really hard time against Sinch. So yeah, we'll use his artillery. It's pretty inaccurate. And the thing about it as well is, because he fires fairly slowly, like, if I hit them, it does a little bit of damage to the barrier, right? I didn't quite get a direct hit. But by the time we get another hit in, sometimes they've recharged their barrier. The way to defeat Sinch is you have to kill Sinch quickly, which is why Slaanesh is actually the way to go, because that's what Slaanesh does. And because Kugath is a defensive faction, it sort of hard counters Khorne, who just can't crack through it fast enough, because Khorne relies on, you know, winning just super aggressively and kill the enemies quickly, which he doesn't have the armor piercing for. Now, in terms of the other faction matchups that I didn't mention, for example, Nurgle versus Slaanesh, it seems about even in that regard. But I'm still figuring these things out. Okay, let's move up. So what we want to do here is give them no opportunity to skirmish mode.
It aids decay.
Okay, it's really important that we try to snipe that Lord if we can. and just lock down their horrors as much as possible. Now, Kugath provides huge bonuses to Nurglings, but even with tons of bonuses, you just can't protect against those missile units. So we gotta lock them down in melee. This here is very powerful if you can get them to stand still. It takes a long time to cast the Blight Boil, but if you can, it'll fuck them up. So you've also got the Curse of the Slug here. So with the army abilities for Nurgle, you have to take damage. The more damage you take... this unit's gone. The more damage you take, you know, the more this gets recovered. Imagine actually using Spirit... what's it called? Yeah, Spirit Leech on them.
The perfect blade. Praise the Earthfather!
It just takes us so long to get in there, to get at them. But the great thing about Nurgle, well, Kugath specifically, is that if we take a load of Nurgling casualties, we can replace them almost instantly, which I'll showcase after this battle's over. But yeah, Lord Sniping is definitely something you want to do, especially against Tzeentch, because if you go up against a Metal Wizard and they're casting Searing Doom, that can just screw you up, because you actually really benefit from being a blob, but at the same time, blobs are destroyed by magic. Which is another reason why we're good against Khorne. You blob up Khorne and just Mortis Engine him, and Khorne can't do anything about it because it doesn't have magic or area of effect abilities. Probably get a little bit of friendly fire, but since their units are worth way more than ours, it's fine. Also got this ability here. Good, we killed their lord. No more magic for them. So putting your heroes on rot flyers can be very useful for just pinning down units, but they're not the best melee combatants. Okay, well their entire army's gonna get wiped out now. Because they've already run away once. So we lost one unit there. Now, generally speaking, in a sort of matchup like this with most other factions, unless I'm fighting like a full stack versus full stack, I'm probably not gonna lose any units whatsoever. But Nurgle, you're just gonna take casualties. But the thing is, you just don't worry about them too much. Especially against Tzeentch. You know, maybe if this was Khorne, yeah, if it was Khorne, we wouldn't have had any problem, because this would have blobbed up, you can't do anything about it, and then just use the Mortis Engine effects, and magic, and heal buffs that he provides. So get some infections, we'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, not the strongest on the battlefield, at least against missile-focused armies, so I imagine that Nurgle will also have trouble against Kislev and Cathay, because those have decent missile units. They're not magic missiles necessarily, but even just regular missiles will grind you down, because you do have some physical resistance, but you know, if you can't catch your opponent to get them into melee, you're at their mercy. Okay, so let's talk about plagues. Now, this mechanic here is pretty much ripped straight off Grom the Paunch. It is, if you're familiar with Grom the Paunch's mechanic in Total Warhammer 2, you'll be familiar with this. But let's just explain it. There are 5 bases to the plagues. You know, palsy, rot, ague, buboes, and pox. And those have various effects. So you have to just choose one of them. And then you've got symptoms here. So any one of the base plagues can choose any of the symptoms, and you get up to 2. And once you've unlocked various symptoms, you can then unlock recipes, which are sort of like stronger plagues. So if we were to, let's have a look here. Let's infect Kugath's Playfather. He's already got a plague on him. Oh no, yeah, he's already got a plague. Let's do this guy here. He doesn't have a plague on him. Let's infect him. It's also cheaper to infect your legendary lord than other characters and settlements. So yeah, if you click on the lord, you can infect him, or if I click on the city, I can infect the city. You can also summon a plague cultist that can go around and actually put it down where you want it to, but you need it's pretty expensive on infections. Alright, so if we're going to infect this guy, let's give him a, let's see, I'll give him a bubo. Let's go with chance of spreading, and then plague duration +3. So it costs 150 infections, and the effect of it will be every time it spreads, we get 5 more infections, extra Nurgle corruption. The plague duration should last a fair while, which is good because if it spreads, it's sort of, when it spreads, whatever the base time was here, it'll transmute that time onto someone else. So you can have plagues last a really long time if they're spreadable and last a long time. Okay, so that there will last on him for 6 turns. So if that, let's just say he's got 1 turn left on that, and then it spreads to the city, that should spread for 6 turns. And then you've got edicts that can make it last even longer. So that can be fairly useful. And you just get infections from, you know, however many cities you have and how high level they are, from resources and from winning battles, as we did over there. And as for recruiting with Nurgle, it's pretty much identical to the Thrones of Britannia system. So we have a recruit pool here. So the maximum number of units that we can have of Plague Bearers of Nurgle is 20, but there are 3 available for us to recruit right now. So if I use this one here, I can only recruit 3 of them, but you know, it could eventually go up to 20. So we got heaps of Nurglings available. So anytime that I take casualties of Nurglings, it's really easy to just replace them because it's super cheap to do so. Right, so you don't end up having a, well, at least at the beginning of the start of the campaign, you don't have a super professional army. Now, the way to get more units is just through the cycling of building. So as it cycles through, you can just get the units put into your recruitment pool, and that's how Nurgle works. The tech tree is, it's okay. I feel like the Khorne tech tree is a bit stronger. You have to research a minimum of 4 in each group to get to the next level, and you know, there are 7 7 technologies in each research group, and I think there's 7 groups. So what's that? 7 times 7. There's 49 techs. Some of them have a fairly low impact, like plague duration +1%. That's I don't know how that's going to come into effect. You have to, so for every 100 turns of a plague, you get 1 additional turn with that. So some of them, you know, don't have that much effect there. But you know, overall, I think that the Nurgle faction's very unique playstyle for sure, and will be enjoyable for people that enjoy a slower paced campaign. Anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Right after this premiere, we're going to be starting a Kugath campaign from scratch. So we'll go through any questions that you might have that this video here didn't answer. Looking forward to seeing you there. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time, fuckers.